Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. My guest today is my new friend, Evan, who is the COO at Make My Move. And they have a super interesting story that I'm excited to dive into today. We've probably all heard a lot about those communities that are trying to attract those of us who recently have obtained remote work or location independence. And they're offering these really crazy incentives like, come move here and we'll give you $10,000, or come move here and we'll give you 15,000 euros. But there's a lot of other incentives built in around that. And there's also a very easy way to go about finding this information and making that move happen. It's not always on the surface. It's not always super easy when you first start diving into it, but that's what Make My Move is trying to solve. So Evan and I dove into that today. We went through some of the leading communities, in particular in the US, which is where they're focused right now, and touched on some of the ones that are popping up internationally as well. But just a really fascinating space to see it evolving. All these communities are now trying to attract remote workers and offering some really interesting things to get us there. So a lot of fun in this one. Hope you guys enjoy it. Please help me in welcoming Evan to About Abroad. So where are you actually located I know you're in the US, but where in particular?
So to the extent we have a headquarters, we're in Indianapolis, Indiana, Great Midwest, but our staff is distributed.
Oh yeah. So you guys have adopted the whole remote work thing?
Yeah. You know, we're new converts to it. So we started remote work during the pandemic, but I think overwhelmingly the team was more productive. We saw sort of greater happiness and retention with employees. So we're running with it. We do have an office that kind of almost functions as a student union. People can pop in, grab a coffee with a teammate, but for all intents and purposes, we're remote first and distributed.
Dang, that's awesome. So you guys actually kept the space. I think there's a lot of power in that, like, especially if people don't feel forced to go to that space and they can just use it as a social zone or collaboration zone if they choose to, but not feeling forced to do so.
Well, it's kind of fun as a manager to kind of see what they actually use it for, and so you actually get a sense of, if you make it deliberate and in their hands, you get some interesting data points about, all right, who's coming in, when do they come in, what are they doing? The building is a really old bank building. So it's just kind of this big open space, good for team events, meetings.
That's awesome. So is a lot of the team spread out like just around the Indianapolis area or everywhere?
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere. I mean, we've got folks in Montana and Texas. The highest concentration's in Indiana, but our work takes us on the road. We're out there meeting with communities all across the country. So a lot of the folks, their official home base is Indiana, but they're in Kansas, Kentucky at any given day.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the whole question around like where do you come from, like on a global scale, is becoming sort of like obsolete in a lot of ways. Like I ask people that question a lot of times and they're like, how long you got, man? Like, I don't know what to tell you. I kind of live here and I kind of live there and I'm from this place, but I haven't been there in 10 years. It's the whole global mobility thing is certainly upon us.
Yeah, I still think that like where you were born and grew up probably imprints something on you in the same way that like birth order does. So, I think like I grew up in San Antonio and that still feels like a part of home, even though it's been, 30 years.
What's funny is I used to like, so I was born in Miami and my parents are from like South Florida. But when I was like 5, we moved up to North Carolina. But when I was young, I thought it was really cool to say I was from Miami. Like I didn't want to say I was from North Carolina. So yeah, I guess I got some street cred, and I realized it later. I'm like, why am I saying that? Like I haven't lived there since I was like a little kid. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like we still do identify a lot with where we're from, and there's some like camaraderie in that sometimes. Like I find, like I'm living abroad and I'll meet other people. I just went for lunch yesterday, for example, like with another guy. He's actually Iranian, but he grew up in the US. And so we both happened to be here in Germany at the time, but we have this like bond around what the US like meant to us, and totally opposite sides of the country actually, but like we still have that. It connected us. And so, that brought us together as friends. friends. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for that still.
Yeah, any shorthand that connects you to people is important, worth leaning into.
Yeah, that's so cool. You mentioned you're actually like out on the road meeting with these communities, and I guess maybe like, so I have the context, but let's provide it for the audience because it's like super fascinated by what you guys are doing, and I think it serves the needs of remote workers in an incredible way, and I think it's a space that's going to be expanding. So maybe you can shed some light for the audience on like what you guys are doing at Make My Move, and then we'll dive into more of the details.
Yeah. So zooming out a little bit, during the pandemic, and this is continuing after, tens of millions of people are remote for the first time, and we expect close to 20 million to move sometime in the next couple of years, and a lot of these are long distance moves, which just means that it's open season for communities that maybe historically have lost population. So in the U.S., this is true in a lot of communities across the globe, but in the U.S., in the middle of the country up through the Northeast, places where maybe have lost industry over the years have also lost population as people have moved to where the jobs are. Well, now that migration is sort of inverting, that these places that folks have moved from are great places to live, great communities, low cost of living. People just moved to get opportunity, but now they can bring their opportunity with them. And so communities are starting to actively recruit these people. So, if I'm a software engineer in Silicon Valley and I've been priced out of the housing market, I can choose, Tech City in West Lafayette, Indiana, for instance, to set up shop. I'd bring myself and my job with me. And that's really valuable for those communities. It brings a new tax base. These folks spend in the local economy. And so it's a new kind of economic development activity. We come in, sort of train these communities how to do that, sort of orient them to the concept, and then help them build campaigns to actually find and reach these folks and attract them.
It's really cool. Like on a global scale, there's these. I had a guy on the show a couple seasons ago who he's helped like 4 or 5 different governments create digital nomad visas or something along those lines. And the way he was talking about it was like attracting, like the way a product person might think about attracting users to as a user base in this like sales funnel kind of, but like thinking about people out there as potential clients in a way. And like, okay, he talked about, for example, like Greece's digital nomad visa and how they were working through the mechanics of it, or like, okay, what does our like user profile look like, and who are we trying to attract, and what does that person make, and why would they move to Greece from X country, and going through all those things. And so I see a similar thing here where like these communities in the US and other places in the world, but talking specifically about the US with you, like they're saying, we have space here for you. We want you. You're being priced out of Silicon Valley. Come here, live a great life. And oh, by the way, there's like all these perks that come with that.
You've got it exactly right. And we're product people. We're the team behind Angie's List, for instance, the last markets we worked on. But it's the exact same concept. I mean, you're trying to find your target audience, and you're trying to position yourself to sort of be attractive to that target audience. And it's really fun to start seeing these communities specialize. So, I mentioned West Lafayette, Indiana. So they're really leaning into, it's a college. So, live and, have access to university resources, lots of stuff to do, sports and places to eat. And then, access this sort of community of continuous learners. It's really, it's attractive to tech people. It's attractive to, they have a really strong engineering culture in that town that, is bringing like-minded folks in. By contrast, you have places like West Virginia that's really all about outdoors. So that, they, give park membership and equipment rentals so that you can, take advantage of the rivers and mountains out there. Totally different audience, but they're finding, the niche and attracting a lot of people.
So for a bit more context, like you're kind of helping both sides of the equation. Like you're going in and educating the communities, so the places that are trying to attract new people on how to be a lively place that people want to move to and sell that in a way. And then also you're providing like a service to help people take advantage of those offerings. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, it's a pretty basic marketplace. There's we serve the remote workers. We try to help them find their place, the place that might match their interests, and help them get the most out of most incentives out of the move. And then we work with the communities to help them set up their programs and market the programs to work. So we're kind of the broker in the middle, sort of facilitating the transaction. But we're happy, and everyone's happy when moves are happening, and they're finding a place.
The one that got put on my radar first and foremost domestically in the U.S. was like the Tulsa program. I think they were paying people like $10,000 or something to if you moved to Tulsa as a remote worker. I don't know much more than that. Am I correct?
Yeah, so I mean, they're really kind of innovators in this space. Certainly there were communities that around the world that have actively recruited remote workers before, but they were the first that kind of built a sustainable and scalable program. So they started in 2018, and I think they've recruited a little over 2,000 people since then. And the headline is that they paid $10,000 in cash to people that move. But I think really the reason people are moving to Tulsa, one is it's just like it's a great place to live. Lots of stuff to do. It's growing fast, but still kind of low cost of living. But they sort of wrap the whole thing in this program where like people come in. I mean, one of the hardest parts about moving to a new place is, all right, you're on your own. Right. Kind of starting from scratch and building your network and building a sense of community. And they've done a masterful job of kind of like building that in from day one. So you move in, you have a cohort of fellow movers that you're kind of in it with, and then they kind of plug you into the around the business community, social community, and that the retention of folks that move there is just off the charts. So I think last time I heard it's like 93% of the people that move end up sticking around, and I think that's just a testament to they've really programmatized it and made it something that people feel connected to.
That is so cool. And like it's 2,000 people, like some people might say that's a lot or little. I mean, you start extrapolating out the numbers when you're talking about thousands of above average salaries walking into an economy and what that investment means. And the ripple effects, I think, often don't get accounted for when you're looking at the economics of it. You can say so-and-so shows up with a $200,000 salary from Silicon Valley in Tulsa and buys a house and a car. But then there's like all the other activities that they participate in, what they infuse into that economy, what they infuse into the culture. There's a lot of benefits on both sides of the coin.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. That we actually worked with an economist to calculate that value, both to the community and to the mover. I mean, that for the mover, think about sort of the compounding benefit of just cost savings over a lifetime. We're talking about deep savings, but for the communities, we often get asked, why would a community pay these folks to move? And it's the same premise as them incentivizing companies to move, because they bring economic benefit. But that remote worker that maybe makes $150,000, they are bringing about $125,000 in incremental economic impact each year. So that's taxes that they're paying, spending in the local economy. To your point, they're buying a house, and then all that money kind of trickles through the economy. It's probably boring for the audience, but maybe just that word of advice if you're thinking about moving. It's like, know your worth. Like these incentive programs are kind of a starting point we see in the market. I think more and more the communities are going to be competing for the talent because they are just so enormously valuable to that local economy.
Isn't it kind of crazy to think about like that paradigm of like competing for residents in a way? Like it's true. It's going in that direction. And you see it with countries with programs, visa programs emerging to attract people. But like thinking about it in terms of communities, I mean, you just do some quick math there. Like that, those 2,000 people in Tulsa, just $100,000, you're talking about $200 million that could has been used.
An economic impact. Yeah.
I mean,
what's great is that it sort of shifts what the economic driver for those places are, and in a way that I think changes the priorities of how we use public space. So you're already seeing this in some of the bigger cities where what had been, business districts and a lot of office space are now being repurposed for kind of like walkable community spaces where, shops and restaurants and, third spaces where people can work are starting to spring up. So, that those incentives aren't just the individual incentives giving, but how are these communities building place for this whole cohort of people. So, I'm excited as a remote worker to see kind of what Indianapolis is going to look like in 10 years, or what, some, neighboring cities going to do to try to poach us from Central.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've told people, like, when I meet people internationally that are going to go to the US for the first time, they ask me, where they should go. And people's first thoughts are always some of the big cities, obviously, like, New York or LA or Vegas or something like that. But I always tell them, like, there's a couple things that I think are really cool and unique about the US that are very, like, core to the culture, and I would suggest exploring if you have the time. One is like our national park system, like the great outdoors in the US is just pretty incredible. And then the other is that mid-tier town that's like, a place like Indianapolis, for example. Like, I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a while, or even if you
Very
go a little bit
city, yeah.
Very similar, yeah. And or if you go a little bit further down that spectrum, like, like a Boulder, Colorado, or something like that, like if you can get into these places, like, I think that's where the real magic is in the US, and what makes it a cool place to be. So for people, listening from abroad, like, that would be something exciting. I think that would be something, like, enticing to go to a place like some of these communities that are trying to attract people, and seeing it as, like, this is how you get a real authentic American experience. For the people in the US who are looking to escape all the things that we've already touched on, super high quality of life and an easy transition.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, not discounting all the big cities, because they are great places, but if there is a difference between visiting and just daily life. Like, I mean, I say the great Midwest. I mean, people are just nice.
Yeah,
it's like genuinely nice and helpful and accomplishing great things. So, you move there, and it's like effectively doubling your income. And what would you do with all that? Travel more and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I met somebody recently who took advantage of one of these kind of like schemes, for lack of a better word. But they were like, look, I'm saving about like 10% of my income on taxes. They gave me money to move here. My cost of living went down by like 25%. So I'm taking all that money, and and now I'm working completely location independently. So I take that money and I travel 2 to 3 months a year and reinvest it that way. He's like, I basically have the same life, but I get to travel for 3 months a year for free. I was like, wow.
Well, and it's like, sweet. Internet infrastructure is getting good enough now that pretty much anywhere you can, like, it's actually, it's becoming less and less common that I find places that, like, I can't connect or can't connect at the speed I need to. So It's all coming around.
It is. Could we, I should have, like, asked you to prepare this beforehand, but I didn't really know exactly, all the details we'd get into. Would you be comfortable if we, like, went through a couple of these places, like, just like kind of featured a few communities around the US that might be interesting for people to explore? Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, I'll let you kind of lead the way, and I'll maybe poke some questions as we go. But, like, just kind of a couple places that are offering unique, great quality of life, interesting maybe benefits that they're trying to use to attract people. Yeah, it'd be cool to dive into.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll kind of highlight a couple that maybe thematically fit into different categories. One of the themes that we've seen is that these programs are just such valuable tools for rural America. These small towns that full of salt of the earth people that because of industry leaving maybe have struggled on the population front. So great example of a innovative program is in Greensburg, Indiana, and that program has youngest mayor in the state. Really just wanted to sort of he got elected on the premise of doing stuff innovative for his his hometown, and so they set up this program of it's $5,000 of a moving stipend just to kind of help offset the cost. But much like Tulsa, like they've wrapped that with just really great programming to get the people ingrained into the community. One of the first questions that we ask when we go in to these places is like, why do you live here? What do you love about this place? What are you proud of? And it really became apparent quickly that, what makes Greensburg great is the ties that bind the people together. And so we were sort of exploring that and sort of built this program around, they bring meals to your house, every month the first year that you're there. And they have what they call seat at the table, where they have community events, and they've they're kind of hard to get a ticket to, and they've got a table at these events, and the movers can come and kind of find their tribe, so to speak. But the really like cherry on top is they developed a program called Grandparents on Demand. So they thought, well, what do we have laying around? Well, we have willingness to help, and well, what do these people need help with? Well, if you're moving away from family, or you might need babysitting, or you might be sad that grandparents aren't there to on Grandparents' Day at school. So they actually, the president of the local foundation, her name's Tammy Wenning, will actually like babysit your kids so you can go out on a Friday night or come to their school, and stand in for grandparents, which, it's one thing to say you're welcoming. It's another thing to welcome. And they've just done such a great job of that.
Man, that goes way up. That's worth a whole lot more than the $5,000. You tell me you got babysit, like some wholesome Midwestern grandparents babysitting your kids.
Yeah, come on.
Who's gonna say no to that?
Well, and I think it touches on an important theme. Like no one's getting rich off $5,000 or $10,000 incentives. Like they're not moving for that. They're moving because they want to, change their life or be connected to a community in some way. And so these places that really prioritize that, I think, we're seeing really early evidence that like it's just so compelling. Some of the other programs, we're seeing a lot of college towns pop up. So Stillwater, Oklahoma, Morgantown, West Virginia. I mentioned West Lafayette, Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana. IU and Purdue, respectively. And so these are places that are just kind of like highlighting all the amenities that they have. Those places are kind of like, islands in the sense of they have kind of big city amenities, but kind of in a smaller, more affordable package. And so, we're seeing a lot of folks move to those places and, attend, they might get free tickets to sporting events, or, that there's, at Purdue, there's a lecture series where, former presidents and things come. And so these folks get free access to all that. So it's like imagine college, but you're not broke. It's kind of the basic idea there.
Dude, college not broke sounds really awesome. Like that sounds like a great combination in a way that I want to live life.
Like it's walkable. There's tons of stuff to do. There's just an energy to it, and you can eat more than ramen.
It sounds really good. We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by my good friends over at Greenback Tax, the very best in U.S. expat tax services and the company that I've trusted to handle my tax situation since I moved abroad in 2015. Greenback is 100% focused on helping U.S. expats with their taxes, and to date, they've filed almost 50,000 returns for nearly 15,000 happy customers like me living in more than 200 different countries around the world. After 7 years working together, I can say with confidence that they make one of the most painful parts of life abroad an absolute breeze with their automated systems that store all of your information for you to make tax filing easy year after year, and the friendly advisors who you actually have a working relationship with. There are no robots over at Greenback. Best of all, everyone is a CPA or enrolled agent with a specialty in U.S. expat taxes, which means they know exactly how to help you take advantage of some incredible tax breaks because you're living abroad, not in spite of it. As of January 23rd, tax season has officially arrived, so it's time to get started. Learn more about Greenback Tax today by visiting greenbacktaxservices.com via the link in the show notes. If you've made it this far into the episode and you're still enjoying yourself, then I would love to ask a quick favor. Open up the app that you're using to listen to this podcast and leave a quick review. You can do this in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and really just about any platform that allows podcast listening now. If you can't find that in the interface of the app, then scroll down in the show notes and find ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, and you should be able to leave it from there. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. It takes me back to like, I'm thinking through I went to Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina, which is a cool little college town. Like it reminds me of one of these places where it's like, I've taken people from other countries to see Boone, North Carolina, and they're like, this is awesome. Like this feels like the most prototypical American experience in a beautiful natural landscape. It's a town of like 30,000 people, but like 20,000 are students. And then there's the rest of the town right around it. But there's great art infrastructure there. Like if you wanted to build a life there, you would live very, very well and have no shortage of anything because everything's there to serve those students. But the problem is there's just no industry. There's no work. So obviously as like remote work becomes mainstream, that goes away. And you see a place like that becoming like people returning there going, I have some of my best years of my life in a place like this. Great place to raise kids, from all the statistics that you would be looking for in a place you would want to, raise kids in. And now you can take your work there. And so like it just exemplifies that, I think, in a lot of different ways.
Well, and earlier you were talking about sort of the spark that tied you to people. Oh, you're from this place. And like other than my birth city, I think that I went to Anderson University in Central Indiana, and I kind of have that same you think fondly about college years and that connection to place is important.
Absolutely. It's really fascinating to see. And I interrupted you. Any other places that come to mind or doing anything innovative?
Owensboro, Kentucky is great. What we love is when the place can start to articulate the DNA and then weave that into the program. So Owensboro is the capital of bluegrass music. And so
cool.
There's a museum there. And so, they too have a cash stipend, but they give you tickets to the annual music festival. They have a sort of a symphony concert, outdoor kind of experience. You get tickets to that. They give you bluegrass music lessons. So like whether you want to play the fiddle or the banjo, they'll incorporate lessons into that. And then, just a bunch of they kind of give gift cards and things around so you can just get ingrained into the community. So that's a great story.
That's that's a cool box to check, I think, like that. Like I wanted to ask you that exact question was, what does your checklist look like when you're looking at communities, and that putting that on that checklist is like having some kind of connection to the culture, something unique about that it seems very valuable to me.
Yeah, I mean, any sort of so the arts are great, music is great. Stillwater, I mentioned, another college town, but it's also the home of, it's called Red Dirt music, which is it's sort of in between bluegrass and country, but it's a niche. And if you know it, you know it. And their program actually included a tour of the city with the godfather of Red Dirt music. This is the equivalent of Prince giving you a tour of Minnesota. It's amazing.
This is fantastic.
And so, I think what's really great about this is that, the programs that are working, it's not because they're dynamite marketers. It's just that it's like a group of people banding together, deciding we love this place and we want it to grow, and then just doing the work to get it done. And so you'll get totally different mindsets and approaches in each place. But it's fun for us to kind of just see these little touchstones of local celebrities or folks that are kind of important to the community, kind of pitching in.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I may be, but it seems like there's already some ingenuity happening, sort of organically, and you guys are maybe going in and helping facilitate that. So I would love to know if I'm correct or wrong there, and then kind of what your are you ever going to a community and being like, hey guys, have you guys thought about this, and are you kind of selling communities on this, and what that conversation's like if that's the case?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that competition start to emerge. And the first step in any competition is just recognizing that it is a competition and that in any competition, there are winners and there are losers. And so, these folks are starting to find creative ways to not lose, but also just to kind of differentiate. So absolutely, a lot of what we do is, steer that creativity. It also, one of the things that we're trying to help people do, though, is we almost have to come and help them see their place with fresh eyes. There's these dynamics that we often see. Number one, I think cities and towns are used to thinking tourism marketing or marketing to companies to relocate. And this is totally different than that. It's all right, why should you uproot your life and come here? So you have to just speak, the consumer language of, what are their values and what are they trying to accomplish, and kind of address that. One of the most common things that we hear the communities early in the process, they say, well, we're an hour away from Chicago. That's our selling point. It's I'm not sure that that's a selling point. People would just move to Chicago.
Yeah.
But why should you move to, Rockford, Illinois, just down the road? And so, what we'll often do is, we'll be boots on the ground, just coming in and talking to locals and, business owners and neighbors, and asking you, like, why do you love this place? What's kept you around? And you start to hear all these just rich stories of, local lore and fun traditions, and the weird guy down the street that everyone waves at when they drive past it. And these stories are kind of what bind people together. And we'll come in and present our findings, and whether it's the mayor or an economic development lead, it's kind of like the blinders are off. They kind of start to see the place with fresh eyes and get excited about where they live, which is fun.
Sounds fun, man. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're going so fast. Sometimes we have to force ourselves to pause and just appreciate kind of that. I think we're doing good. Hopefully we're doing some good for these communities, helping them grow.
I mean, there's probably no doubt that you are. I mean, even just like that fresh set of eyes to say like, no, man, look at what you guys have here. Like this is unique. We travel across the country. We see communities everywhere, and you have something unique. You have red dirt. No, people elsewhere don't even know what that is, and you guys are the capital of it.
Yeah,
and like I think you can't see the forest from the trees sometimes, so you don't even realize how good you have it in certain cases. And so revamping that and saying you have something special here, and here's how you can market it certainly has benefit, I think. And on the flip side of that, I'm curious now to kind of talk to like more of the individual, like somebody's listening and they're going, yeah, I live in New York. I have remote work and I want to go somewhere. What do I do? How do I make this happen? What do you say to that person?
Yeah. So, take the plunge. First of all, decide what you want to get out of the move. What are you optimizing for? There are a lot of different places and a lot of different sort of needs that can be met with those places. We've talked to thousands of these folks, and a lot of what they're looking for. Maybe they want some more space. Maybe they want some place that's more affordable, that they can buy a house or have kids. Could be that they're just want to connect with a community. Like one of the most popular incentive components that we've seen, a handful of communities do this, is give the transplants seats on not-for-profit boards. So it's just a way to kind of jumpstart your connection to the place and contribute. I've been amazed at how much just wanting to give back is motivating people, and maybe they feel kind of locked out of the local giving or not-for-profit scene. So that's fun. But yeah, just make a short list. Part of our job is to kind of play matchmaker and help you find the right place and connect with those places. It's really easy on the site. You pick a place, you apply for the incentives. We have a team of folks that kind of are your concierge, kind of help you solve all the problems you need to get across the finish line.
Wow, that's cool. So do you actually do the whole most of the process online, or do you actually end up talking with a consultant, so to speak?
Yeah, so most of it, in terms of the interaction, a lot of it's online. Most of the programs will have at some stage, they may interview you just to kind of get a sense of what you're looking for, and they'll also help connect you to locals. If you want to have coffee with a local champion, somebody to just give you a sense of what life is like, there's those resources available. But you can kind of do it as much or as little online as you want. The application and sort of the submission of documents and things like that is all online. Easy to do.
Cool. So you guys are facilitating it though, from like as opposed to me trying to navigate. Okay, I live in New York. I want to go somewhere else. Now I got to do all the research into all these communities. I start Googling which places have these incentives, and I think a big part of it, something that's come from this conversation that I've really learned, is it is about the incentives to a degree. I mean, that might put something over the edge, but it's much more about being wanted. Like you're going to move to a place where they actually want you. They're trying to attract you there, and you're going to be welcomed with open arms. You're going to be asked to be on the nonprofit boards. You're going to get to meet the mayor or whatever. Like you're going to feel like you have tribe immediately. Yeah. And I think that's huge.
That's exactly it. It's absolutely huge. I mean, the money, I think, does two things. One, it's a marketing tool for these folks to kind of show up in that Google result. And it's a de-risking tool. It's like, moving is expensive, and it's a signal that they are actually wanted. But the real, I think, benefit of these programs is the weaving you into a new place, helping you find to your point, your tribe. That's just so valuable. I mean, feeling connection and feeling that sense of belonging is a powerful thing. It's a foundational kind of human need that I think is being met as a result of this. So there are, I think, 90 of these programs across the country. They're all on the site. About a third of those we help actively manage. So if you apply on the site, you're kind of invoking our team to help you. The rest of them is sort of a list. We'll make it easy to find where you apply and get connected to those independent programs.
Very cool. And then kind of I don't want to go as far to say white glove service. I'll put words in your mouth there, but I mean, there's a service to help facilitate that, because I think it's scary. I mean, not some people are accustomed to moving a lot, but some people have lived where they've lived for their whole lives or 20 years or something. It's like just thinking about navigating that is enough to just say, I'm not even going to take a look. And so.
Yeah, it's a huge pain for sure. And it is, we aspire for it to be pretty darn white glove. So we have a team of really helpful folks that are there to answer questions and kind of help you move through the process. And then we also connect you to local resource. So if you need to find, realtors or, you need advice on schools for your kids, we have local resource that can help with all that.
I love it. It's you talked a minute ago about the need to feel connected as like a basic human need. And people talk a lot about remote work and how it's kind of like not inhumane, but not humanizing in a way. Like you end up people will say, oh, you're sitting in your bedroom in your underwear working all day. You have no, you're miserable and sad and you have no friends. And like, it's a terrible picture to paint, but that's what some people will do to detract the whole remote work thing. And this is a fantastic way to showcase like the exact opposite. Like I have this theory, kind of, I guess, for maybe lack of a better word, that people fill that void with something. So like if you used to go to the office to make all your friends and to get your social cup filled, and now you work from home, generally people figure out how to fill that void. Like they're going to join a gym class, or they're going to get involved with the community service, or they're going to spend more time with their kids or their parents or friends or something like that. But this is just one more way, and on like a deeper way, that it can show how you can actually like realign all your values and make a whole new life for yourself. And in that, a whole new social community that in a place where you might actually feel a lot more at home, which is facilitated by remote work. And I think there's something really awesome about that.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And I'll extend your point a little bit. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how long we have tolerated having our social life sort of dictated to us by our employers.
Right.
Like, that's insane. I mean, it's good that you can find friends at work, but like, why don't you pick who your people are and who you want to spend time with and when you want to spend time with them? You may still choose work people, but you're actually choosing. I think this is like a generational shift that we're witnessing, where people actually have the power and flexibility to make those choices themselves. And you're like, you can spend time with family, you can make new friends, you can, organize your life how you want, independent of your employer's decision. And so we're just in the early days of seeing what people actually do with that freedom. And I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, me too. Not to mention, you can get Midwestern grandparents to watch your kids for free. I mean,
come on.
That is the cherry on top. Just one last question. Have you guys, are you thinking at all about taking the show on the road and expanding internationally? I've came across recently the program in Sardinia, Italy, where they're offering, I think, 15,000 euros to move to Sardinia. Any thoughts on the international landscape?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll be expanding into international. I mean, to your point, the same problems that Indiana faces, Italy, faces too. So that you're seeing programs as a spin up. We in our first, couple years, we've been really focused on the U.S., but there are programs all over the globe, and we want to facilitate those. Whether you're talking about Europe or Caribbean is pretty nice, and they have a lot of programs down there.
Awesome. This has been really enlightening, and this is an area that I've been really fascinated by for a long time, and but haven't really known where to go. I think it speaks to the service that you guys are curating, because I really haven't known where. Like, I wanted to get somebody on the show to talk about this, but not just about Tulsa, not just about West Lafayette. I wanted to look at this like more holistically, and until you guys came along, like there was just nobody to do that. So thanks for the work you're doing. I think it's awesome for remote workers and the local economies, which I think is one of the coolest parts about this whole future of work movement. It doesn't get talked about enough, is the impact it can have on developing economies, and that can go international or to smaller communities in your home country. So it's very cool to see what you're doing, and this was a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's fun for me too. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks a lot. We'll be in touch. And before we sign off, do you want to mention any places where people should go to follow you or follow more about the work you guys are doing? We'll place all those in the show notes as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so first, if you're thinking about making a move, makemymove.com. It's totally free for remote workers. All of these programs are on there, and it's super easy to participate. Follow us on Twitter at MakeMyMoveUSA. The company, I am at Evan_Hawk. We keep everyone in the know on what's going on.
Awesome. Okay. All those will be in the show notes as well. Thanks, Evan. This is great.
Thanks for the time. Good to meet you.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.